Okay, everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen.
Is it going around? What's this?
Yeah.
Is it contagious?
I'm gonna put an ankle club now.
Is it contagious?
That's such a wuss, all I could manage was one little toe. So.
You were greedy.
All right, Jason, we have another injury here. That's what we're talking about.
Jason.
Yeah, he broke his leg or ankle in 3 places. So yeah, he's laid up in bed. So. He fell down. Right. What?
It's blue now.
Oh, it's blue. Oh, he's got a cast on, a blue cast. All right. All right. So we are going to actually start with the workbook of the day, which I kind of popped up on my phone today. And I thought, wow, that's just so right there. Why don't we start with that? And then we'll move into it's workbook lesson 281.
Lesson 281.
There are his text and then where do they
Mary,
start?
where do you get this book? I got mine at the secondhand store, but I didn't have it the last time I looked.
You can usually order them on Amazon. Where do you get books?
Yeah.
Right.
the lessons, which they
Right.
start over at the
Today's
end of the
lesson? No.
text week.
Well,
That's the
281.
one. And
That
that's
wasn't
the
281. That's the one that
introduction,
popped up. So that's the one we're doing.
What page, are we on lesson
12.
30?
No, actually, it's 281. Workbook lesson
Oh,
281.
I have so not gotten that far. 281.
Yeah,
Lesson.
it popped up on my thing. Maybe it was because when I started it in the year.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, yeah.
You gotta put it in, for some reason, it will always go back to that. thing you just said.
Right.
438.
Okay.
Right.
No, the workbook lessons would be the same.
Well, not page. numbers.
Right, Kate, you're correct.
Oh, they're giving you the book update. Okay, this is what it
All
says
right.
text.
So this workbook lesson is called I Can Be Hurt by Nothing But My Thoughts. And I thought, wow, we're always talking about thoughts and the importance of understanding it's the thought, not what happens in the world, that is what we really need to begin to look at. And I was thinking this week, if I went into an art class and somebody gave me a big blob of clay and everybody else in the room had a big blob of clay, we would all make different things out of that clay. Okay. You know, I might make a foot, somebody else may be a car, another person a building, another person a sculpture of a head, but literally they're all made out of the same blob of clay. And if you think about the thought as that blob of clay, where the source or the cause of everything, no matter how it looks or how different it looks in the world, is coming from the same source. And so to think about, no matter what happens in the world, it's coming from the thought, and that would be the blob of clay, which is a thought against what truth is. Okay, so as we're reading through this, think along those lines. So, Father, your Son is perfect. When I think that I am hurt in any way, it is because I have forgotten who I am, and that I am as you created me. Your thoughts can only bring me happiness. If ever I am sad or hurt or ill, I have forgotten what you think and put my little meaningless ideas in place of where your thoughts belong and where they are. I can be hurt find nothing but my thoughts. The thoughts I think with you can only bless. The thoughts I think with you alone are true. And for Leslie, we usually read a paragraph and then I go through it line by line to hopefully clarify it to some degree. So Father, your Son is perfect. And understand when it says, Father, your Son is perfect, notice the word Son is capitalized, which always indicates the Son of God, not this character called me, the Son of God. And when it says your Son is perfect, what it means is as God created us, we are perfect. But when we chose to separate and then we self-made ourselves, this is never perfect. In fact, this is the opposite of perfect. We're on workbook lesson 281, Russ. So when he's saying we're perfect, he means who you were as you were created by God, not who you now think you are. When I think that I am hurt in any way, does anybody ever feel hurt in any way?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Pretty much 24 hours a day, right? And justifiably, may I add, according to my rules. Okay, so I think that I am hurt. If I think I am hurt in any way, it is because I have forgotten who I am. And I'm just going to stop there. So if I am feeling hurt, again, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, whatever form of hurt comes forth, it is because I have forgotten who I am. I have forgotten the essence of what the Father created, not what we self-made by choosing against what we really are. So he's trying to help us remember it is simply because you forgot who you are. It's not because somebody said something wrong. It's not because you tripped and fell and smashed your face. It's not because of any of the things that you may identify with as the problem. It is because we have forgotten who we are, which means from the perspective of the Course that we chose against who we are and took on a totally different identity. And since we have a couple of fairly new people in the group, I will explain the reason why we chose to leave God was because literally God gave us absolutely everything. Yeah, wrong place. Gave us everything because what God creates is of him. And therefore the sons of that God would have all the attributes that the Father have, which are love and joy and peace and eternity and innocence. And we are the same. And I'll put it down here so those on the call can see it. But the only thing that was not given to us was that we could be the creator, because there's only the creator. He's the only one that can do that. And then there's the effect of the creator, which is the Son. And the Son said, dang, I want it all. I want to be the creator just like God is. So at that moment, we had this, as the Course described it, a tiny mad idea. And that tiny mad idea was, gosh, I wonder what it would be like if I could be the creator, of which is exactly what happened, which was totally the opposite of what we were. And then instead of having all the attributes that were freely given by God, we literally took on the attributes of absolutely the opposite of what we are. And so when it said, Father, your Son is perfect, when we were aligned with what truth was, then everything followed through. But since we separated, we now have an identity that's the opposite of God. And everything that plays out in this experience is the opposite as well. So when we had that tiny mad idea, we were given an answer, and the answer was nothing happened, come back home. And we looked at that and we thought, I believe I've killed off God, because if there's a oneness and now there's a two-ness, oneness doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so we live in two-ness, and I should have it this way, actually. What happens is we believe we killed off God to exist in a dualistic world. So now when God says, come back home, nothing happened, we thought about it for a moment, thought, no, I'm not going back there. I don't trust him. He's going to do to me what I thought I did to him. So we decided to stay here, even though the answer to come back home, nothing happened, still is there and has always been there and will always be there. We took on the belief of the separation. That experience was terrifying because we lived in a place totally opposite of what we were as a connection with our love of God. So we couldn't tolerate the pain and all of that. So we tried to figure out a way to solve that problem by getting rid of the pain. So what we did is projected into a world, took on the identity of me, the character who's an innocent victim, and everybody else is the perpetrator or the problem. All right. Solve the problem. Didn't get rid of the problem. It just solved what I experienced as the problem, because the blueprint of this remains in our minds. But we then drew this line. It said, okay, I'm going to forget this exists. I'm going to forget this exists. And I'm going to live in this little box. And I'm going to play out this experience of I'm an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control. And so now literally every time we look at somebody, anytime we're hurt, anytime we have a problem, it's coming from the mirror that looks like a person, a place, a situation, or an experience that is actually reflecting back to us what is going on in our mind. Okay, so when I think that I'm hurt in any way, it is because I have forgotten who I am, and that I am as you women, and that I am as you created me. So in other words, we've forgotten that we are as God created us because we took on this other identity. So we're all collectively find ourselves in this smoke and mirrors experience called the ego. And none of us remembered any of the previous things that occurred, other than I was born a sweet little adorable innocent victim. And literally, in order for me to survive, somebody had to take care of me, feed me, and take care of me, or I would not have survived. And literally, from then on, everything that I encounter feels like it's somebody else's fault, not my own. So as we begin to understand the course, work the course, process the course, be very, very, very aware. We're very addicted to playing this part of an innocent victim. And the last thing I want is for me to become aware that I'm responsible for it. Now, the bad news is we are responsible for it. The good news is now that I'm aware I'm responsible and I'm the one that chose it, we can now choose differently when we're ready to choose
The bad
differently.
news and the good news are the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, because both are the same, whether
Yes.
you're the quote unquote innocent victim, whether you're the one protecting. you
Correct,
know, Or
right.
attacking, it's
Right.
all one and the same.
Right.
And even if you're not attacking, you're gonna attack yourself later for being the innocent victim, and you're gonna feel guilty, like it's all just the same.
All enmeshed in there, yes. Except for if we go high enough, it's not real and none of it happened anyways. And if we go to that level, then we wipe this out and then we align with this completely. But as long as we're playing in here, you're absolutely correct. It doesn't matter which side of the road I'm on, it's gonna get me. Gonna get me. All right, so your thoughts, capital T, and that anytime you see, especially with thoughts, a capital like that, it means the thought of love or your connection with love. So your thoughts can only bring me happiness. So the only time we can access a happiness that is the true happiness, I guess we could say that, is when we begin to align with the source of where true happiness and thought live. Here, it's a tricky scenario because we all know, I can be at work all week and I think, oh, I can hardly wait until I can go out on Friday night and party and go to the movie or do whatever, dancing or whatever it is that I enjoy doing. And we would all say, yeah, it's a lot more fun doing that than it was 40 hours, day, 40 hours a week at my job. But the truth of that is that may bring us some temporary experience of enjoyment, but it does not bring us the salvation and the understanding of who we really are. And there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things. In fact, enjoy your life and that kind of thing. But this is a much deeper understanding of what true happiness is all about. Right. If ever I am sad or hurt or ill, and I'm going to stop there for a moment and be very aware, Jesus is in no way saying you should feel guilty if any of these experiences are occurring to you. This is a collective thing. We're almost always experiencing these. Every one of us, even those people we look at and think, oh, their life is so together, everything is wonderful in their life. They're experiencing that in another form as equally as we are. All right, so if ever I'm sad or hurt or ill, I have forgotten what you think, in other words, what God thinks, and put my little meaningless idea in place of where your thoughts belong and where they are. So the Course is very specific. We made a mistake. We did not sin. We made a mistake, and it's not bringing us the best effect. But there is no place where the Course would talk about anything in regard to you're a sinner, you're bad, you're awful, you're terrible. It's simply trying to help us recognize we made a mistake. It wasn't a very good mistake. And if we begin to observe our world and see what the effects of this choice look like, which are all coming from these delightful words over here. And I have a chart I'm going to give to you later about this, so you don't have to do anything with that. We wouldn't be surprised that, of course, that's what the look of my life is going to present, because we've chosen against the very essence of who we are, which is love. So I'm going to chop up that sentence again. So if ever I'm sad, hurt, or ill, and as we have already established, everybody agrees, we've all had those experiences very often. I have forgotten what you think. In other words, I have forgotten my alignment with God, where the only experience could be love, and put my little meaningless ideas in place of where your thoughts belong. So we have replaced our thoughts with his thought, okay, and where they are. And his thought continues to remain there, and we can take as long as we want playing in the arena of the separated experience, but the answer will always be there when we're ready for it. And as long as we play in our thoughts versus his thoughts, we will experience the effects of what the ego has to offer. And a great deal of the practice of the Course is to begin to observe what is the effect of having aligned with the ego, and do I want it anymore? And go to Amazon at midnight and order something, and it comes 2 days later, and you get the package and you start to look at it and go, man, that's not what I thought I ordered. Most of us would pack it back up and send it back, because that's not what I want. We didn't realize that what we ordered wasn't really what we want. And as we become aware, if the results of having chose this look like what my world oftentimes looked like, sadness and hurt and pain and all those adjectives we talked about, then maybe I need to choose differently.
But Marianne,
Yes.
we do want it. That's the thing. It's not that we don't want it, we do want it.
Okay, good point. And what we really want is to still be in control. See that when we took on the identity of the ego, we wanted to be in control. We wanted to be an individual, we wanted to be special, and we wanted to be in control. And to the degree that we still harbor those and want those, then we don't want this. Even though there is a strong part of us that does want this, we're not willing to let this go in order to embrace that fully. Yeah.
And we forget that we ordered it.
And well, gosh, absolutely. Not just, we put the blinders on. What do you mean forget? I don't want to have anything to do with that. How dare you tell me that that's what I did?
I ordered something, and something came from Macy's. I'm like, who the hell ordered that?
Oh, that's right, I did order. yes. And, you know, I think, and I shared this story last week. I saw a movie where they had this magical stone and people could make a wish on their magical stone. And as soon as they wished, poof, they got what they wanted immediately. The only thing they didn't realize that when they wished on the stone and they got what they wanted, something that they cherished got taken away, but they never didn't realize that. So we got our wish, we got to be an individual, special, and in charge on the throne, but we lost our connection with the love of God. And in this movie, at the end, after everybody realized the thing they wanted, even though they still wanted it, the memory of what they lost outshined the thing they thought they wanted to replace it. And literally, that's the process that we're going through. Coming to that place where we realize this is too high of a price to pay if I'm going to lose this.
You know,
So Marianne,
Wait, Helene's talking. Hold on a sec. I'll get you. Go ahead.
I've been watching the Olympics.
Okay, yes.
And it's impressive to me what all of the participants have done with their life, but it requires focus.
Oh,
It
yes.
you know,
Yes.
you're looking through this people and this is the goal out here. And my life is just like accumulating around that. And I am going for that. And then you
Yes.
see something like Simone, who, you know, gets the twisties in midair. And it's like saying, let's take another look. Because we've given up something to
Yes.
go for what we want.
Absolutely. No question. No question. Yes. And, you know, I think for myself, when I first started studying the course, you know, this whole idea of, you know, I'm playing this part of an innocent victim and everybody else is a bad guy. And I know everybody struggles with this just as much as I do. And, you know, trying to, especially initially, really begin to look at what this represents was a very challenging experience of recognizing I want to kill my brother so that I can play the part of an innocent victim. And then I don't mean physically kill your brother, by the way. Any thought of anything that's not love that pops in our mind in relationship to anyone, including my own physical body, is representative of hating or killing instead of loving. And as we begin to, what I call, be more spiritually in tuned, the desire to really look at that and understand that on a different level starts to increase. But initially it's sort of like, no, I don't want to hear that I'm the one that did all this. So yeah. And some of you know, I taught ice skating for many years. And I worked in the Learn to Skate program, and ice skating is very cyclical, and I'm sure gymnastics is too, in that when the Olympics are on, you know, the place is filled to capacity. And so people would call and go, yeah, I want my little Susie. She's only 3 years old. We want her to go to the Olympics. You understand? And it's like, okay. And we'd all just roll our eyes in the office because we knew what was going to be required to even get that person to the Olympic, let alone have them win. And yet this is kind of what we need to do, is keep focused with the course, no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times you twist your ankle, no matter how many times, you know, somebody else beat you in a competition. What do I want? Do I want the connection with who I really am, as this described, or am I going to be satisfied with this? And be honest with yourself. And if it's not time for that commitment, it's not time for that commitment. There's nothing wrong with that either. This is where I am.
This is what I was saying, though,
Yes.
is that
Oh, yes.
I don't want my broken leg, but I do want to be in control.
There you go. Did you hear him? I don't want my broken leg, but I do want to be in control. And yes, absolutely. And that's true with all things that happen here. I don't really want the difficulties, the pain, the suffering, the whatever, but I do want to be in control. And as long as I want to be in control, the effect of wanting to be in control will bring the classrooms that are presented to us that oftentimes don't look too pretty. Yes, Cynthia.
And Marianne,
Yes.
I just want to kind of add another dimension, you know,
Sure.
adding on to what was just said about Jason's broken leg. I read a description of the mechanics of what happens when you get the twisties or the yips or whatever.
Right.
And the description talked about it's a moment when you're under so much pressure that you try in your mind with your thinking brain to control everything instead of releasing and allowing what is organically in your body.
Right. From all the training. Yes.
Yeah, to guide you. And so it's like trying to override the bigger, more functional flow
Right.
with our logical mind. And I've had, this was mind blowing to me just as a musician in a situation with auditions. It like was like, oh, that's why I suffer with auditions, because that's what I do. But as far as the course, it made me think of how much we talk about, you know, override that decision-making moment of like, are we going to choose for logic and ego and mind, or are we going to relax and like allow the larger flow of life? So I thought it was just such a really rich event in the news this week from a million different perspectives, but particularly it really resonated with me both as a musician and as a student of this course.
Correct. And, you know, I've always thought of anyone, whether it be the Olympics people or musicians, they go beyond the body. They are now the music. They are now the emotion that takes place. And that's literally what the course is as well. And you know, I think to me, it's like we have to intellectually understand this to come to the point where we're willing to let it go and find that space. And, you know, if you don't even have the knowledge of knowing that's where you want to go, you know, some people may find it, but to me, it's helpful to know it. But then it comes to that place of, I got to leave that space and let that take over.
But then again,
Yeah, it's the difference of like being an actor versus being a vessel.
Right.
And I'm not very good at being a vessel. I'm much better at being an actor.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got lots of training with that. An actor or a vessel. Yes. Yeah.
but then again, we think about this and I'm wondering if the bums that were living on the street that are homeless, if they didn't say, well, I'll just leave everything fall where it's supposed to fall. And this is how they wind up. I don't know.
Well, and right.
Because you have to have something.
Right. And I understand where you're coming from, Bob. And you know, sometimes if you talk to a bum, you may find out they're much more peaceful than we are. Right. That a bum would be much more peaceful than we are. Yeah. Yes, a home. Yes, thank you. A homeless person.
He doesn't need the label of bomb. He's just like you and I.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, this isn't, the course is never, you know, the course even specifically says, don't deny the body. And Ken would emphasize all the time, act like a normal person in the world, but keep working on shifting your mind to this. And, you know, if you don't know the answer, don't worry about it. Do the best you can, but keep asking to align with the right mind. And eventually the right mind will take over where you're no longer in control anyways.
But probably the average person has goals.
Indeed, as well as they should continue
Right.
to have them.
Right, so
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. All
It's the
right.
difference of, are you going to be in partnership with the divine on your goals, or am I going to try and control them myself with my own resources?
Absolutely. Yes, correct. Did everybody hear what she said? Okay, she said it's the difference between I'm going to do it on my own or I'm going to do it with the divine. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. I can be hurt by nothing but my thoughts. Oh, good one, huh? Well, it's the truth, but how many of us live it that way all the time? You're not raising your hand.
Well,
Yeah.
at least honest.
Yes, right. And even if we can't do that on a 24-hour regimen, at least we're starting to grasp the idea that that's what we need to walk towards. Where are my thoughts? Are they aligned with truth, or are they aligned with you know, the garbage pile?
I just watch myself not doing.
Exactly, but that's still a good place to be, because before you were totally, unclear about any of that. All right, so I'm going to read that again. I can be hurt by nothing but my thoughts. So the next time somebody says or does something, and let's just, take something as simple as somebody giving you a dirty look, and we know how wounded we can be. Or we do the other one where you're not going to wound me. I'm going to show you how tough and cool I am, which is really the same thing because there's something going on within. Watch how that's something that can quickly disturb my peace. We're like this poor little leaf blowing in the wind. Somebody does this, I go like, ugh, and that's not a very peaceful, calm space to be living our experience in. And yet most of us are so addicted to living in that place, we don't even know it. And as you kind of fine tune this process, you'll start to become more in tune with, wow, I just lost my peace there. I can regain that by straightening up a little bit here. Let's see what we can do with this. Where before we were totally oblivious to anything that was going on. It was just one reaction after the next reaction after the next reaction. And there was always a finger pointing to who caused the who caused the problem, where I justifiably had the right to respond from that place. And if they would do something different, don't you know, I would then be okay, which the Course says, If you were at peace, you would not be disrupted by absolutely anything that takes place in the world, any way, shape, or form. If you can be, it simply means you're aligned with the ego, which is good information to know, because now I can do something about it. Before, I didn't know I could do something about it. So it's not a reprimand, it's an awareness that can help me take the next step.
So what do you do about it?
You observe, oh, look at that. I am responding out of something other than love. I must be aligned with the ego. And the very fact that you're even conscious and aware that that's what's going on already shows you're here instead of down here. So smile at it and go, oh, there I go again. And don't make a big deal out of it, but realize if I'm aware of it, then I'm no longer the Jason reacting to it. I am the decision maker observing the Jason doing what Jason is doing. And every time I'm here instead of here, I'm literally stopping I'm having the carpet roll back instead of roll out. And I'm actually collapsing time.
So it's just a question of whether you're observing, the left or the right side. But when it's a split mind, the decision maker sits up there and looks like and as long as I can do that, sometimes I'm engaged in ego behavior and
Absolutely.
well, more than sometimes. And,
Go.
but I catch it. I'm aware of it. And instead of judging and saying shoulda, woulda, coulda, I watch it.
Right.
And the same thing happens when all of a sudden the rose-colored glasses come on and everything is beautiful. And I'm looking at the right side. I'm still observing myself, paying attention to my experience on the right side of the chart.
Yep.
And that's, of course, a more pleasant experience, but it's still the same thing. It's the split mind and it's you're observing. You're either in this or you're in that.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And Ken would say the best course student is a course who can observe without judging or how do you, that's not quite right. Being a good little ego in the world, but you're observing it without judgment or condemnation.
I'm learning how to do that finally. It's only taken me a couple of years to get that started.
Hey, you're
You're on
doing
the
good.
fast track.
Yeah.
You are on the fast track.
Yes.
Oh.
All right. So I can be hurt by nothing but my thoughts. So even if we become aware of our thoughts and we can just for a moment, just be with that thought. Oh, wow. That must be coming from my ego. How interesting is that? And we don't need to smack ourselves on the hand or any of, the usual brutalizing that the ego loves us to do. Just become aware I must have chosen wrongly.
And that's another thing. You can't even get to the other side of the chart if you're continuing to perpetuate, that's what's so beautiful about looking at your behavior,
Yes.
particularly looking at, the judgments and whatnot that you're making,
Yep.
others or anything else from your ego mind. But it's also another thing to experience. The non-judgment allows us to get closer to the other side of the chart.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because if
Absolutely.
I can take the little things and not judge them, like Harvey always says, step back, and, and look again, like don't judge what your behavior is in a moment, observe it, learn from it, and be aware of that. And that kind of awareness can't help but be added to some kind of investment to the right side of the chart.
Yep.
Is that true?
Absolutely correct, because in any given moment, you're either there or here. And if you're
Both.
observing that, you're not there.
Right.
Yes.
Well, every time you look, you're keeping the, whatever you're looking at above board, you're not suppressing it
Right.
and putting it down.
Yes.
Because remember, this world is nothing but a streaming of thoughts. That's all we're doing is
Yep.
projecting thoughts out here.
And
That's why
attaching,
they're nothing but illusions.
making associations based
Yep.
on emotional responses to
Right.
those thoughts, even though they're not even connected and there's no real meaning to them.
It keeps you rooted here.
Like the
Smoke
body, the
screen.
world, the rest of it, right?
It's all a smoke.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of it is. And it's a smoke screen that we set up to stay stuck in.
I don't wanna.
On top of it. Yes, Patty.
Oh,
Okay, so I'm kind of, the way I'm looking at life now through all the growing that I've done.
Right.
It's, and I know that you've got an answer for this, but it just seems like everybody that, like Simone Biles, everyone that has their eyes focused on being the best at gymnastics or being the best at softball or best at baseball or the best at their job must have a lot of, they've got to be all ego because they've got to be totally willing to sit there with pride and look how good I am. I'm much better than these to get this gold medal and stuff. So are all these, it seems like now everyone's doing their job and trying to be better than someone else and walk all over other people. Are they all, so they're all in ego unless you're searching for your source and your God and what's really important? Are all these people doing? To me, it just seems silly now.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And usually, especially in sports, it's all a very dualistic thing. I'm going to beat you, not this team versus that team, which is all part of the dualistic concept. Now, as an individual in any kind of a situation, well, any situation for that matter, it's, do I take the Holy Spirit with me as I walk through whatever it is I'm walking through? Versus everything, this pile of stuff is done with an ego and this pile of stuff is done without the ego. It's really an individual situation with every single, context of whatever's
They
being
have the
done.
right intentions.
Correct, right,
And they give
right.
it up to God that
Right.
is providing this.
Well, but see,
Balance.
God's not really, it's not, the Course would not use that type of a terminology. It's more like in the context of, and Ken would often describe it, every moment of the day, there is a tape for the ego and there's a tape for the Holy Spirit. And depending on which one you're accessing, that will be the one that gets put into play. So for literally every single moment of the day, there's an option of, if I do this, it's going to take me here. And if I do this, it takes me there. And of course, the Holy Spirit part is always going to be taking me closer to that oneness. It's not necessarily that I get to win. It's not necessarily that I'm, well, usually not special, because the whole concept of specialness comes over here. And it doesn't mean you couldn't win and still be aligned with that way of being. Yeah, but
That from what I understand, that if you are in the ego mind, you will be the best and you will do it the perfect you'll be perfect.
If you're in the ego mind?
Yeah, no.
No.
Well,
Well, but what if there's, what if there's,
Right.
what if there's two people? Yeah, and I was just gonna say
What
also,
you're gonna say is,
It's
what
not,
I,
yeah, but I mean, this is about doing the best you can with what you do without any investment in the outcome, which is a very hard thing, in my opinion, to do.
and it's about observing what's happening.
Right.
You know, like I play pickleball, I'm looking and I came to a realization, you know, against the other team, it's kill or be killed.
Oh, gosh, absolutely.
I win or you win, kill or be killed. I don't give a, you know, and then seeing, wow, this is, you know, I mean, savage. Really, I mean, you lose.
Yep.
And then stopping, whoa. wait a minute. I'm taking it very seriously. And then that, hey, and that what causes split.
Yep.
Very serious. I can, you know. And then looking at my partner and we laughing, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And that sort of began to melt or relax everything.
Right.
See that I'm having, what are we here to do?
Yep.
Am I trying to really kill, you know, this 90-year-old man who's playing, you know, he's doing it, you know, he's good. But he's looking at me really with this intense hate.
It goes back to having to be right all the
Yeah,
time.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or a doctor
Or a lawyer. Yep.
and a CPA,
Yes.
you want to be the best. And when you're so sure that you're right, and before I came to the course, I was really sure I was right. It's a badass criminal defense lawyer, could take anyone on, chew you up to pieces, like a machine gun. But you know what? I can't do it anymore. Because I've been here for a couple of years and it's enough for me to realize, it's not what I want to do at all.
And we
So
feel
this,
like
you know
lawyers-
how AA ruins your drinking kind of thing?
Yep.
Well, Course in Miracles has ruined my ability to function in the external world of distraction known as the ego thought system.
But I see just what I'm getting with it, right?
Right.
I win.
Right.
But
And then what do you
win?
have? Yes,
What do you
yes,
got?
yes.
Yeah.
yes.
I'm right.
but you know, I have a similar experience to Shara, and it's like, for me, it's playing this dumb word game. Okay, and I'm in a competition, like on the
Yep.
weekend with these other people, and I see the killer in
Yep.
me. Bitch, you are
Yes.
not gonna get this, I am gonna get this. And I
Yes.
go, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
And I've gotten to the point where I can enjoy just competing.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Without having to, and that comes up sometimes, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what did I think? You
Well,
know, what did I think was gonna happen?
the example that Ken Wapnick gave, it was not in competition.
Okay,
It was like a doctor operating on somebody's heart,
okay,
and he's gonna be able to do it perfectly.
okay. Now that's different. Okay, but,
Right. He's
but-
not competing against them.
no, okay.
But it's not, we have to get beyond behavior here
Right.
because only the body behaves.
Right,
It's not about behavior, it's about my thoughts
Yes.
about the behavior.
right.
Thank you.
So it's not about doing something perfectly here in the dream. It's a dream.
Winning or losing.
Well, it's-
It's about what am I thinking? What side am I coming from here? About what this puppet is doing?
You
Or not
use the
doing
same
it.
analogy that she uses with the grandmother cooking the cookies. If the
Absolutely.
doctor thinks that he's better than the doctor next to him, then he's in trouble.
Exactly,
But if
exactly.
he's just doing what he's
Show some
doing
patience.
with no outcome, he's there.
Right.
And it's reminding me of the whole scene of the Bhagavad Gita where the god Krishna is in the chariot with Arjuna. And Arjuna's going, those are my cousins and my uncles over
Right,
there.
bam, bam, bam,
I'm
right?
going into battle with. And he
Yeah.
says, you're a soldier.
Yeah.
You
That's
do
what
what you
soldier
do.
does.
I'm here with you.
Yes.
And that's a real hard concept
It is.
in our culture to wrap your head around. Yeah. But in essence, everyone's your brother
Right.
And everything,
and everything. Yes,
even the
correct.
bugs that are
Absolutely.
accumulating in your home,
Absolutely.
they're
correct.
just an offshoot of you.
Yes, exactly.
I'm looking at them much
Thanks
more
for that
curiously.
analogy,
Yeah.
Harvey. Thanks for that analogy, Harvey.
Well,
YouTube.
it is what it is.
I know,
You know, if I wasn't so concerned about the body,
right,
I would lay down right next to it.
Right.
right,
But I am concerned.
yeah,
I am afraid
yeah.
for whatever reason.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, so really what you're talking about isn't necessarily the bugs as much as the fear or the
The
emotion
thoughts about the
associated with
bugs.
it.
The
Thank you,
thoughts,
thank you.
nothing can hurt me but
Okay.
my thoughts.
We
Right.
had a conversation about bugs.
Right,
And I was sharing, I was sharing about my experience with cancer
Hmm.
and how, it's a commercial. It's taking over the body, but coming to see it differently. I had a distension. I had ovarian cancer. I had this big distension like I was pregnant. And I would rub it and somehow just sort of embraced it.
Right.
Because like, bugs like us, it's just surviving. It was just surviving. And it was interesting because water just surrounded the tumor
Yeah, okay.
and protected the rest of the body, unbeknownst to me. But I wasn't at war with
Right.
it. And I
that
remember
point.
people looking at me sometimes, because I was like 89 pounds. And they would look at me like, oh, look, and especially my friends was like, oh my God, and I felt I was 89 pounds. I probably never see this again.
Typical woman, what can we say?
A woman, yeah. But not being at war with the cancer.
Yep.
And so it reminds me even now with this COVID thing, the same thing,
I agree with you there.
Everyone's like at war and doing ridiculous things
And we
just.
And that empowers it.
I don't love
If I don't, we say it.
Byron Katie has a saying that if I don't love cancer, I don't love. It is all,
you
love
can't
is
exclude-
all
because you
encompassing.
can't exclude anything.
Nothing,
Yes.
nothing,
Even the
Yes.
things that
Yes.
one might deem evil at any given.
nothing.
See it again.
No, I get it. It's
Yes.
all one or the other.
Encompassing.
You can't love a fraction and then not the rest. It has to be the
Absolutely,
whole.
exactly.
That's why it's so darn hard to get, I actually didn't swear, to get over to the, it's so fucking hard to get over to the right side of the chart.
Yeah.
But it's hard, that's why it's so hard to get over there.
Well, you
Okay, but
can't
we-
get over there.
You
But
don't-
we have to
It's not
understand that it's
there.
not us, right? Yeah, it's not us that's gonna get over there ever. It's me getting out of the way to allow that space to be open. And if I'm trying to figure out how to get there, I'm over here trying to get out and I'm not over there.
It's like what
I'm in
Cindy said
control.
earlier, between the actor who is doing and
And
the
the-
vessel that is just empty.
There you go,
Allowed.
right there. Yeah. And all of the part of the actress or actor is still holding on. I've got to be in control. And the first choice to separate was a choice of me being in control. And we love being in control. Being in control is anti every ounce of who I am.
Control, name of the game.
Which is funny because we really don't have any.
Well,
But
yes,
we think we do, which is like, both are the problem. We have no control, free fall
Yes,
uncertainty at any given
yes,
time. And then
exactly.
we think that we have control. It's just.
Yeah. And I think part of the process of understanding the course on a deeper and deeper level is to become acutely aware. I really don't, I am free falling. I mean, nobody here in this room could have ever predicted COVID. And yet it has influenced every single person on this planet.
And it's a virus.
And it's a virus that we can't even see, right?
If you let it.
Well, if you let it,
And
correct.
soap
Yes.
and water kills it.
And soap
Yeah.
and water kills it? Yeah,
Good-
right.
Good point, Barb, good point. I looked at that too.
I didn't see that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Well on my job was to design special machinery. And on my job, I was some things that I had designed and I would look back and I couldn't believe that I had done that. And also some
Yep.
other people recognize the same thing. What, you've done this, how long did it take you?
Yep.
So I said maybe an hour and a half. Did you know the whole industry's been looking to solve that
Yep.
thing, and you did it in an hour and a half?
Yep.
And this has happened
No.
a couple times.
Yep. Yep.
So I wasn't in any competition. I
Right.
wasn't beating my,
No,
you know,
it just
Your
came
motives
through.
were in the right place.
no, it just came.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
exactly.
Yes,
And
I have
that's a
moments
real
like that
artist.
too, where what I'm doing is selfless, and I'm not even thinking about any aspect of myself in the process of what I'm doing, and it often comes out
Sure.
far better than if I
Right.
had ulterior motives. And when I say ulterior motives, I mean any praise for the ego, whatever, but when you have those moments and you're just giving, just pure giving and love, then that is moments of the right
Correct.
side of the chart.
You become the
Well,
doing.
Yes,
Well, this is why I say you have to be on the right side of the chart,
Sure.
yeah.
and everything you do will come out right,
You know, I'm listening
because it's coming
to,
from you.
sorry, no.
It's okay.
I'm listening to Ken's series called Looking with Jesus. And in it, there's a woman in the audience who says, you know, I've been doing this. I've been taking, you know, the details and working with it. And I go to the Holy Spirit and I ask for help. And it hasn't been working for me. And what I realized is that what I needed to do was to be in the presence of love and then do my asking for help.
Mm.
And Ken says, it's easy when you know how.
Yeah.
You know, and Jason had asked earlier,
Sure.
what do I do now?
Nothing.
And then that's what, I just go to that place.
Yes.
I
Yep.
go to that place
You
where
know,
there is nothing.
Well, also in this class, I've asked a question, and Harvey has answered my question. And I would ask him to repeat it, and he could not
Yep.
repeat it. And
Exactly.
this has happened
Absolutely.
maybe 3 times with Harvey.
Just think of my life.
We understand. Yeah.
That's also happened with other people in the
Sure.
course also.
Yeah.
And people who have not been in the course.
Exactly.
One time at work, I had a question, and the guy who I only would talk to and say, oh, hello, came up to me, told me the answer to my question, and walked away.
Yep.
You say, where
He
did
had
that
no
come from?
involvement in it
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
He was there to be truly helpful.
Exactly.
Symbolically.
Right. But Bob was also there in a space of receptivity as well, because the
Otherwise,
same
you
thing
wouldn't
could have
have seen it.
happened and not
wouldn't-
heard it.
yes.
Right.
Yeah, we see what's in our purview
Yeah.
based upon where our mind is at.
Right.
No, I don't like that one. Challenge.
But to get to the point where we're in that receptive place, we're being asked to observe that I am kill or be killed, that monster is in there constantly striking out, whether I'm doing anything about it or if it's just popcorn and my thoughts popping up that I become aware of. Sorry about that. That's all the stuff that's going on. And as we become more and more aware of that going on, then that space begins to open up because we're not fighting it. And the whole deal with the ego is let's keep the fight going in one way or another. And I think that Denise addressed this to some degree earlier of, you know, if I attack my brother, then I feel guilty because I attacked my brother. And so it just cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles. But if I'm observing myself doing that without judgment or condemnation, I'm not feeding into the very thing that recreates the experience. So at this point, we're being asked to observe, keep watching how quickly your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions from your body are. I want to get that one. I want to get that one. And even if you're a nice person, watch how that can bubble up in very, very, very subtle ways. And just become more aware. That's what the ego mind is all about. And smile at it to the best of your ability. Because literally, when we choose the ego, this is what we bought. It's automatic. Marianne has no control over it whatsoever. So if I'm beginning to observe what having bought the ego looks like, and I can do that with some practice without judgment or condemnation, I'm actually not feeding it any longer. And that's really what we're asked to do. Keep watching, and then it falls away because we're not feeding it. When I do something, then feel guilty, and then I go on and brutalize myself, even if it's something that happened 40 years ago. How many of you have a moment where if something pops in your head that you wish you'd done something different 40 years ago? It's got you by the tail and it's going to whack you around the room a bit. Just recognize, oh, I was doing the best I could at that time, and that was what I was doing then. I might not do that today, but yesterday or 40 years ago, that was what was in charge.
You have the uncertainty
Yes.
of the left side of the chart, and it's so conditional.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why so many occasions that special love doesn't work. Because everyone else has these expectations and these
Yes.
conditions, and we do too. And even if you think you're being more reasonable, someone can flip on you on a dime and tell you, no, they don't want to do something. And then the minute you sit down, they can say, you know, get up, I want to go, or don't sit down, or just, I mean, it's, everyone has their own
Yep.
agenda. So it's very hard to mesh because you can't just be a people pleaser. You lose yourself in the process of it.
Yep. And this is not about being a people
So,
pleaser.
No, I know, but even
Yeah, I
their
know.
whole, all the goody stuff and the hero of the dream, that's all, you know. The hero of the illusion. That's all the same too. Not only is it distraction, but those are the things that we live in, and it's the
Yep.
human condition. And the only way to get away from it is to.
Look at it.
Yeah, it's to look at it. It's to look at it.
Anyway,
I have an interesting story.
Yeah, go ahead.
please.
With this car situation. Well, of course, I live on the left side of the chart most of the time. I can't afford, I don't deserve, something's gonna happen. Oh Lord, this is too much for me. I'm gonna, guilt. And, just even the process of waking up after the purchase, I bought the purchase last Saturday and feeling like, oh my God, what have I done? And so through the week and asking for help with it, and things just sort of happening that just sort of smooth things out, and people come, what is wrong with you? You deserve, it's okay. My son, I'll help you, Mom. And my friend Lori, look, it's gonna be okay. And finally I settled down. So this morning, the salesman calls me because I had to get a duplicate for the car that I traded in. And it's taken some time. And he calls me this morning. I don't have the, where's the paper? Oh, this is horrible. This is, And I'm like, what the? I can't make the bank mail it, or we can't make it come any faster. Calm down. And I saw myself trying to control his anxiety. Whose anxiety? Was that
Your anxiety.
Hello? Whoa, there I am. There I am doing him, And then my relationship, after I hang up with him, I'm like, just calm down, we'll be okay. You do go to church, right? You believe, let God handle it, all this. And I'm like, damn, he's all. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Who is that?
Wow.
There I am, see that?
Yep.
Projecting through him and then attacking him, getting ready to attack him. He ain't got damn, he ought to settle down. Who ought to settle down? What is that? What is that I'm looking at? What do you mean?
I always want to make someone else feel better, and I think it's the same thing.
Yes,
It's
it's
really
just the
not-
opposite.
Yeah.
Trying to make my own self feel better. If my
There you
dogs
go.
are barking too loud, I'm like, shh.
Right.
And I try, because it's an issue for me. It has nothing to do with the dogs. Dogs are just a world, you
Yep.
know?
They're just doing dogs,
Yeah,
right?
Thanks for
Yeah,
that.
and people-
Yep.
Yeah, people do it, yeah, but just seeing it come back, wow, this is how I felt about, wow, God, this is not gonna work. Coming back, a week later,
Yep. Yep.
Line.
And I really like the way you were, the fear ahead of time, the fear during, the fear afterwards, and then even a week later, when you thought everything was calmed down, it comes back and bites you again. And be observant of how these games get played out. And it feels like it has to do with outside, but it's always coming within.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
it seems like the critical component here is to desire to remember who you are. And
Amen.
if you're in that space, then you can access other things. But until you get into that space, you forget that. That's the first thing you forget.
Yep. Well, and a great deal of that is because we're so addicted to the ego. We have put the ego in charge and we have reinforced it since the Big Bang. So now I ask once in a while over here, do you think that's going to bring back all the investment I have in that? No, it's going to be a process of continually being reminded, oh, that's right, I could choose again. And it's the teeter-totter ride of the healing process.
And it's so interesting that I noticed I was talking to my dear friend and she was saying something about ask for help. How that is the furthest thing from our mind. I don't need help. I can deal with this.
Yep.
At the car dealership, I'm looking around at all the men walking around. Somebody needs to help me make this. Somebody needs to help me. Never do I think about
Asking, yeah. But again, that's because our minds are still very undeveloped in this focal point of choosing for the Holy Spirit. I mean, I know a lot of you have been coming to this group for a long time. You carry a book around with you, but do we remember whenever something happens? Or the book lessons, you read it in the morning, go, oh my God, this is so wonderful. I love this. And then you forget it the rest of the day and you put your head down the pillow. Oh, that's right. I was supposed to do something every hour. Well, that's just representative of where we are right now. And don't judge that either. Just simply realize, well, I guess I wasn't quite as focused on what I believe is my number one priority. And you smile and you go, oh, I guess not.
We don't know how consistent or how afraid we are.
We have no
And
idea.
until you do, you keep doing the same thing.
Exactly.
And just being afraid doesn't make you a bad person.
No. But we really have no idea what we're really up against. We really don't. And it's nothing, but we've invested in it with our belief or our thoughts, as this section is talking about. And so that's what's running the show until we replace those thoughts with the thought of connecting with one, which comes forth by recognizing this is a story. I need help. All right, we'll take about a 10-minute break and then we'll come back. So in line 4, I just want to re-emphasize the words that Jesus uses when he says that we have replaced his thoughts with the meaningless idea, with our meaningless ideas. And Jesus, it might sound like Jesus is being unkind to us, I guess you could say, but what he would say was, if you had the option of receiving all of this and you're choosing to receive this, that's just not a real smart choice. No, it's not to our advantage. And he's not trying to make us feel bad. He's trying to help us realize you have so much more available if you choose it.
Yeah,
And what you're choosing isn't getting you what you want.
Look at when you were a kid having a temper tantrum, and now you're an adult having the same
Oh,
temper,
absolutely.
same temper tantrum. We're not getting what we think we want. And that's
Absolutely.
all what we did with God.
And continue to do with God.
That's correct.
Yes. And the Course has a couple places where it talks about the idea of how you see your brother, how you see yourself, and how you see God are all the same.
Exactly.
And much like Denise had said earlier, you either love or you don't love. End of story. And I think a lot of times we may think, oh, I love God, but my neighbor, oh my God, I got to just get rid of him. And the facts are we literally take the people and the things and situations in our life and replace God with these things, because we're looking through the lens of guilt, sin, and fear.
So basically, there's just one relationship.
There's only one ever. Yes.
This whole thing is a big distraction.
It-
That's all it
absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. And it works good.
Yeah,
It works good. Lots of good things. And it's tricky because it's like, you know, a person that smokes, let's say, either smokes or they don't smoke, okay? But with life, you have to continue with your life. You can't just like, okay, I'm not doing life today. It doesn't quite work out that way. Not
Yeah,
to,
but the smoking in life, they have the same symptoms.
well, yes, I
You
know.
don't have to keep buying into the.
Yep.
The baloney that we bought into.
Yes, correct. Yes.
What do you mean, Harvey?
We have no excuse for the stuff we do. We just make it up.
That and like,
I
it
mean,
really doesn't
like
serve
you,
anything.
like you say, you rip them a new asshole. every time it's- Well, when you're interrogating anybody, you could do it with a different purpose.
Right.
You can get the same results. But we're just deceiving ourselves.
Yeah, it's just no
It's,
distraction.
it's really my guilt every time I jump on
Always.
somebody else.
Always.
It's really mine.
Transferring it for just a second and then the guilt comes right back because you attacked them to begin with.
Yep.
No.
because we.
It's
put more effort.
never about anything or anybody out.
Yep.
Never.
Right.
And if we're not looking at it from the point of view of the decision maker, we are just projecting more guilt, fear.
And that's what
anger,
we do.
Everything out into the world.
And it never comes out because we're not letting that awareness
Yep.
be recognized.
The awareness keeps it above board and no more projection. In time, it falls away.
And you're either above the battleground observing, or you are part of the battleground. And as long as we're part of the battleground, it's a.
And if you are part of the battleground, just look at that
Yep.
fact.
Yep.
Because that's what's going on. That's a fact. If I'm being an asshole at that minute, that's what I am. But like she laughs about it. She always wanted to be a Miss Goody Two-Shoe.
No, she
And we all
was.
did.
She didn't want to be. She was.
You're not talking about me.
No, he's talking about me.
No,
Oh, okay.
that's the idea she walked around with.
You accuse of
And
that.
most of us want to cover that over because
Yeah.
we think we want to be that.
Sure, sure.
And the course doesn't say, I want to take you just where you're at. Look at what you are.
All right, the thoughts I think with you can only bless.
you.
So what he's saying is when we drop the stories of the ego, create that space, then we're from a place where only blessings can come. And you know, Bob was talking about the doctor and the surgery. If I'm in that space of allowing the Holy Spirit to flow through me, whether it's doing surgery or anything else, Mary Ann's not in charge anymore. Mary Ann is not operating the puppet at that point. Of course, she wasn't operating it when she was over here either. The puppeteer of the ego was operating it. And now I just exchange it for a different puppeteer. Same vehicle, different operator.
Different perspective. as
Different
far as seeing
perspective.
things Differently.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. The thoughts I think with you alone are true. So it's only when we connect with the thoughts, or the thought as sometimes it describes, of God, that's the only time it's going to flow through from that place that I'm not in control.
Yeah, and in this world, we walk around saying, I think.
Right.
And he's telling you, you don't think apart from God.
And what we think,
we're
we
lying.
think is what they call
We're
thunk, and
lying
it's
all
not
the
really
time.
thinking,
Thinking.
right?
Thinking.
Well, I think it has a different connotation.
You said I think.
I know, but I think that because of perception, that the only thing you can say is, well, I think that might be true, because we have no idea what actually is given the small, tiny opening that we get to see anything in.
Yep.
And we're too proud to say, I don't know, too
Yep.
afraid to
Yep.
say, I don't know.
Yep.
Boy, it
Yeah, I don't
feels
have a
like
problem saying that anymore.
It's my mantra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you come to a point where it's okay, but initially it's pretty rough. Yeah.
This seems to run parallel. This whole thing that I'm hearing now with what's happening in the world with the politicians and the coronavirus and the vaccine and not vaccine. And no one really knows, and the politicians play God and they're controlling us like puppets. And it's like, I'm getting the whole vision that we're living this
But you
in a
can,
whole different.
but you can watch that with a different attitude.
Well, that
You could-
you
you
could
could
say.
sit there and
I
smile.
know what you were going to say.
Pauline makes salads while she's watching a terrible disaster on TV and then thinks about what she's gonna make for dinner. And you know what? That spares her mind from going into something that she can't even control, or why mind mess yourself over that? I'd rather be thinking about what I'm making for dinner too.
Well, that
You
to
know?
me is
Or you
like,
can look at
you'll
it and
never
not take it
resolve it then
serious.
if you ignore it. You
So-
gotta feel it.
Yeah.
Who's
and-
gonna solve it?
Yeah.
Who's gonna solve it?
And-
It isn't in the doing.
And
And
that's a tricky one again, because we think I can solve it when in truth, we don't even know what the problem is. And we're trying to solve the problem where it doesn't exist, because the problem is here, not here. And yet we, it's very normal for all of us to do that, try to figure it out here. And the course is constantly trying to bring us back to the problem is here, the solution is here. It doesn't matter, again, when I talked at the beginning of the class of having that clay, doesn't matter if I'm set on my sculpture as a foot and hers is a house or hers is a car. They all look very different, but they're all coming from the same blob of clay. And it's either the
So in
ego clay.
simpler terms, with all this going on in the world, and I'm not trying to resolve it, how do you maneuver through it? What,
Right.
you just focus on the divine and do good things and be kind, and that's really the only way that
No.
I'm getting to know.
You take yourself exactly
You,
where
right,
you
you observe yourself as you turn on the TV, getting pulled into it and thinking, well, look at this idiot, why don't they figure this out and whatnot? And you smile and say, of course, if you're choosing for the illusion, that's what's going to happen. And when you take it less seriously, you're not feeding into it. When we try to be do-gooders in the world, which sounds nice, we're oftentimes in denial of what's really going on.
And what they're showing and what that's showing me is what's going on in me. It ain't
Right.
That's
going
all
on
it-
out there.
That's all it's
This is,
showing.
yeah, that madness is what's going on.
When when I'm angry at social injustice,
Right.
because that's been a big thing for me in my career. I am so furious at it that I want to come up with programs and I want to bang something into place and I want to fix it. But the reality is that when I get so angry about that, I've lost my peace.
Right, yes.
When I was pretty new in the course and I came across lesson 79, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Followed by lesson 80, let me recognize my problems have been solved. And it just like clicked into place for me.
Because we're always thinking there's a problem even when there isn't one.
Correct.
Well, not only that, but we focus on solving the problem where it isn't. And in answer to your question, what we would do in the world is whatever you do in the world, but keep asking to have your mind healed in the midst of doing whatever your body does.
And that's what you do.
And, or forgiveness. Our purpose is forgiveness. And for me, looking at what does that forgiveness
There's
mean?
nothing to do.
What does forgiveness mean? It means I want to look at this differently. I really want to see this differently. I'm looking at it like it's a problem. And it's not a problem, you're saying? Show me.
So all the activists in the world that are trying to correct things, all should just do nothing.
Well, okay, so let's,
No, we all have a place.
They're all part of my mind.
so we're gonna look at this chart. Okay, so this, I did a whole series of classes around this idea. This is the hero, the dream, me. This is the world. This is good stuff, this is bad stuff. Once we chose for separation, and the reason we chose it was because we wanted to be in charge. We wanted to be in control. So we projected into the world, and now I'm the hero of this dream of good and bad within my world. And my job, or my way I look at life, is I'm going to find ways to solve the problems of the world. Well, the problem isn't the world. The problem isn't the problems of the world. The problem is that we have chosen a mind that's in opposition to who we are. And this is now the result of that. But the answer doesn't lie here. The answer lies in choosing to return back to who we are. But because we're so enmeshed in this, we can't just like pop out of the world and go float somewhere. So we continue to do the things of the world, but you keep asking to see it through the eyes of the Holy Spirit rather than what the eyes of the ego.
The idea of being in the world and not of it. The
Amen.
idea of being somewhat detached as we go through the mechanics of the things that we are required to do to take care of
Correct.
ourselves in the world. And obviously, listen, I engaged in a profession, and so did so many other people, school teachers and, all kinds of educators, here. And, we all have to, we do something, we all have to do something, but it doesn't have to cause such strife. I'm just gonna give a quick example. For the first 20 years or so of my career, I thought that I had to spend a lot of time in the ghetto, and I just thought that I had to give to all these families, which I didn't mind. But I started to allow my compassion to turn into this deep empathy where I was literally walking down the gutter with them because I wanted to show them that I was the same as them and that I really want, but it wasn't good for me.
Right.
It was not good for me. It caused me tremendous strife and put me in dangerous situations oftentimes, there's no question. But I did it because I thought that that's what I needed to do to be able to relate to people, to garner their trust so that I could assist them. But really, I bet you out of the thousands of clients I've had, I bet you I've only helped a couple handfuls. So I think there's a place for activism all over, and that's how progress, in our mass consciousness, it's like a pendulum, goes. But it doesn't mean that you have to engage at every level to the point of it causing you upset, because the moment that you lose your peace, it's no longer worth, continuing to engage in behavior that takes you away from that peaceful feeling, because you can't get to the right side of the chart. You can't be peaceful and within the ego thought system. You can't. It's one or the other.
Well, just be careful. You're not the one that's trying to unpiece yourself.
Well, I understand. What I'm saying is when I am stuck on that side,
Right.
and I'm engaged, as a victim and perpetrator all at the same time,
Right.
I'm not at peace.
Yeah, but you see, you don't do anything.
Right. That's what I
You
was trying to
are an
say.
ego. I am an ego. I do what normal people do in the world. The only difference is now I stop and look.
Right.
Okay,
That's the only difference.
right. And things that I thought were choices were probably just the script that was written for
You
me
got it.
out of the one mind in this particular life, and that's why I'm playing it out.
Jesus said on the cross or whatever he said, I don't favor martyrs. That I don't forget how the words
Yeah,
go.
I know what
but
you mean.
Demonstrate that I live in you.
Right.
Doesn't mean he is, but he's part of, once his thought system takes over, which is the right side of the chart,
Right.
I can demonstrate what he was teaching.
So it's not
And-
about doing anything,
You-
and because, because what you were saying about helping, trying to help, that's an attack.
Yep.
That's an attack.
Yeah, you don't
You see,
know.
who
what
knows
they
if they
need.
need help?
You don't know,
Right.
what- you
Thank
don't know
God
what they
again.
need.
I
Really.
know.
Yep.
And it's also, for me, about the whole activism thing, dropped really quickly for me because of two things. And of course, it certainly had to do with the course, but being aware of something or someone has to change in order for me to be okay. Noticing that.
Yep.
And then, I can't remember who said this, I read this quite a few years ago. Every generation thinks they can change the world, and that's been going on since the dawn of time, and nothing has changed. Because the solution isn't there,
Right.
the solution is up there.
That's
Yep.
why peace treaties will never
Don't work,
Sure.
Never. Right.
utopians never work.
Yep.
Nothing works.
Well,
And
and
We
it's
still have to
noticing that.
operate in the world though, but the thing
Sure.
is
But
that
it's
it's by
another-
script,
With another
It's-
teacher.
right?
Yeah, it's
That's
not
right.
that you don't vote for a certain person or whatever, or doesn't, you know, go out and protest or whatever, just, there's no attachment. The attachment's gone.
Right, the reactivity, the attachment of
It's
the
not a grievance.
associations and the emotion.
Kim was saying something about, look at, when you look and see, if you look and see that it's somewhere you're gonna gain, or something gonna get, no, it's ego.
right.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you shouldn't go out and do it,
That's
even if
right.
you know it's ego. Because you may still be so addicted to the ego that you need to walk through that process to come to the point where you're ready to let it go. So this isn't like, oh, I'm an ego, and no, I'm not ego, I'm ego. Do what you are inspired to do, and the rest will fall away. And I wanted to comment about, Denise was talking about, she feels inclined to move beyond being a lawyer at this time. And literally, as we begin to shift, it's not Mary Ann that will go, okay, I don't need to be a lawyer any longer. It'll simply be, no, that doesn't serve me anymore. It'll just automatically fall away. And if I think, oh, I have to give up doing this because I'm going to prove I'm not an ego anymore, it's highly likely your ego's in charge again.
Well, and at least I'm aware when my motivation is for the glory of the ego in my work. I'm able to see that. And
Right.
I'm also able to see when I'm doing something from a selfless nature because I want to, you know, out of care, out of regard for somebody else.
Yep.
You know, but for most of my career, I wasn't thinking, assessing it like that.
Nope.
But that's how I look at it, which is also why it makes it very difficult to stay in such a adversarial profession.
Sure.
Yeah,
Understood.
I'll tell you, you want to know what
I
to
know,
do?
as it was coming out of my mouth.
I have a different word for that.
Go to page 401. And look what Ken says all the time.
The text.
Forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing.
Yep.
That was.
It merely looks and waits and judges not. And the key is judge not.
In other words, we're doing this, not this.
Right, well, if we were judging, we couldn't even skip the awareness. Because we'd be too busy trying to cover up the guilt.
You
from
might have
judgment.
judged before you even got to the awareness. That's how we make it a big, we're judging every minute of the day
Correct.
under the guise of preference or whatnot.
Yeah.
But believe me, the subtle judgments that we make.
Yep. And again, we're being asked to observe those, and they become much more apparent. They start to bubble up and you recognize it's everywhere I look, every moment of my day. And again, to smile at it and go, well, of course, that's what good little egos
That's
do.
what
And not,
egos do.
not be all bent out of shape about it.
What page are we in that?
401 back in the workbook section,
Oh, in the workbook.
halfway down.
All right.
So as she's looking for that, I'm going to read that second paragraph. I will not hurt myself today, for I am far beyond all pain. My Father placed me safe in heaven, watching over me. and I would not attack the son he loves, for what he loves is also mine to love. So again, it comes back to this, if I'm aligned with the ego, I'm literally hurting myself, unbeknownst to me. And as we become more and more aware and more in tune, choosing for the ego, not a good idea. It got me what I wanted. I got to be in control. I got to be an individual. I got to be special. And we don't even know how addicted to all of those things we still are.
Well, specialness took the place of love.
Exactly.
And the ego broke.
Exactly. And as we become aware, having chosen for the ego hurts me, hurts my brother, it hurts everything. Then we're going to go, oh, maybe not a good idea here. Maybe I'll try something different. But as long as I think if Harvey will do something different, then I'll be okay. As Rose was saying, not going to
Never
happen.
happened.
Even if I made a list of 1,000 things I wanted Harvey to do to make me, peaceful or happy or whatever, he could do every single one of them. But it's not going to work because the problem isn't Harvey. It's a big
And you're gonna
setup.
change your mind. No
Oh,
matter,
yeah.
even if Harvey does everything he's supposed to do, according to whether you say yes or no, it's still gonna be a setup, and you're still gonna
Yep.
change your mind and say yes to something that he's just acknowledged your no to,
Yep.
and then he's gonna get, yeah,
Because this is a setup.
additional.
I can't play the part of an innocent victim without a perpetrator. Literally, unequivocally, I cannot be an innocent victim without a perpetrator. So if I'm aligned with this side of the chart, I need you. I want you. Come home with me tonight.
And what makes it even worse, I secretly watch you.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Doing exactly what you're doing.
Oh, God, now you're really twisting my mind up,
Yeah.
see? I should have put my seatbelt on.
That's right. But as Harvey thinks he just wants peace and love. But to the degree we're still aligned with the ego will override it because we've given it the power to override it.
And it happens and we don't even know it. And that's why we're asked to look, because the
Exactly.
decision has already been made
Before.
to
Yep.
attack.
I read this quote today by Hippocrates that kind of nails it, I think.
And remember, he was here a long time
He was
ago.
here a really long time ago. Before you heal someone, ask him if he's willing to give up the things that made him sick.
Did you say it again?
Before you heal someone, ask him if he's willing to give up the things that made him sick.
Yep.
Boom.
And there's another one that's similar to that. You can't wake up someone who's pretending to sleep.
We want to sleep.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, once the choice to sleep took place, everything that followed from there is automatic. Mary Ann, this individual puppet who thinks she's in charge, has nothing to do with the puppet and how it operates. The puppet is being operated by the puppeteer. This is one puppeteer, this is the other puppeteer. There are only two to choose from. So if you see the puppet doing ego stuff, you know the puppeteer of the ego is in charge.
And the course makes this so simple. It's either this or it's that. And you'd think that I would think of it, in these situations. Sometime.
But again, we know if you're addicted to anything, when you're in that addiction, you are completely enmeshed in the addiction. You can step away from the addiction and years later look back and go, man, what was I thinking? But we are that addicted to the ego.
The problem is we weren't thinking.
Well, absolutely right on. started to thunk at that point, and there was no thinking involved. Because there's only one thought, and that's love. Anything beyond that is not thinking. Now, ask me, I think, but it's not real thinking.
A friend of mine used to say, we don't know who discovered water, but we're sure it wasn't a fish. That's what we're doing here. We are
Yes.
swimming in the ego thought system.
Yeah.
So we have to get out of that system
Yes,
somehow or other
exactly,
to have an alternative.
exactly. And no help in the pond.
No, you cannot get there from here. You gotta get out of here.
Yes,
Wake up.
But you have to first see the awarenesses of yourself operating as the ego to even get closer to things.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's what I'm doing, and it really does make a difference.
And oftentimes, the reason why you would want to leave the water is because it's so polluted, you can't breathe any longer. Or as,
Or it
you
feels
know,
like you're in quicksand.
or you're in quicksand, or just like Helen and Bill, there must be another way. All of us have come to that awareness, whether we were consciously aware of it or not. Something here is not working. All the rules and regulations they told us don't really work.
That's what you.
And so
call
what Rose was saying, basically, it's like we're trying to put something on that. Where's that chart you have, a blank, the blank? the
Oh,
blank?
that
We're trying to
would
bring
be,
something from over there, over to this. And this is what, this is the destiny.
right,
Which we have no concept of.
Destiny,
Right.
right, is the blank.
right.
And it don't compute. You know?
And
Yeah,
we're
concept.
majorly addicted to this, so this has absolutely no
Right.
appeal.
That's scary.
Yes, it
It's
is.
both
Scary
are.
shit.
Is there a third option here?
Nothing.
I want a third option.
You want
And
to
I'm
start
gonna
off.
create it.
When you're.
Well, now that sounds,
And I
that-
literally
there you
go.
go. Let me do it my way.
I know.
You know, we're so deep in fear, we don't realize how deep it is.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when I'm got the mindset and I am on the right side of the chart, even if it's just for fleeting moments or part of a day or whatever, it's still because of the beauty and the sameness that I can see around me, but I still don't have any kind of concept for the ineffable. And my biggest fear of God isn't the punishing. I don't think God's punishing, but I don't know what it is. So it's
I
just
bet you
scary.
somewhere
Yeah,
you
you
do.
do.
Okay. You're right. Okay, I'm afraid of God.
Somewhere you do, because
Okay,
however
Do
you
you think
interact
anyone or
with your
anything is out
brothers.
to get you?
No, well.
That's all you have to ask.
Rose, say that again.
Do you think anyone or anything is out to get you?
Well, what do you think my answer is?
Now, that's God.
Oh, you're talking about God.
That's your thought. That's
Oh,
your
Denise,
thought of
there's
God.
nothing
Denise, you
wrong.
brought it up.
You know what
There's a lesson
Ain't
in
gonna be
here.
one to
Every
sit
time
next to
you
you
accuse
anymore.
somebody, you gotta ask yourself, would I accuse myself of doing that? Right there stops you right in your tracks.
Well, some things that occurred.
No,
in
there
my
is just
existence.
some
All
things.
things I went into them.
Yeah. you
Nothing
do.
transfers.
You gotta
I'm
look,
ready.
you gotta look, you gotta look.
There are no exceptions to this rule.
None, nothing.
Nope.
And the ineffable that you were talking about, that is the right side of the chart.
Yeah, but I still am afraid of it.
So
'Cause
all
I don't
the
know what it
words and
is.
everything are still over there with special love and all of that other stuff.
That's all. that
All
we're
the
craving.
beauty,
That's
you know, all of the feel good,
Yeah.
yummies that we get,
Yummies.
yummies, yeah, yummies once in a while.
Yeah, if we didn't, we'd have left alone.
Oh, gosh.
No.
Way, yes. And, you know, I know, I think that concept of I'm afraid of God is a very hard concept for the average person, especially initially. But if you think about the fact that you're afraid of anything,
Mhm.
if you're, you know, anxious, you're uncertain, all those attributes really represent I'm afraid of God.
And thinking of God as the light and us separating from God as darkness, you get that. I mean, we have this innate fear of.
Exactly, yes.
Of the darkness.
And I think Denise said that the human nature, I don't think that's a word you, human condition. Well, yeah, in our human condition, absolutely right on. This follows us everywhere we go. But this is outside of the human condition.
Yeah, and Ken says that, you know, if you wake up in the morning and you see that bored face looking at you in the mirror, you are afraid of God. Because you think that thing's real.
So how deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, we factor that with the addiction of this. I mean, just being addicted to this, let alone all the rest of it, is like hugely monumental. You know, I mean, I like to give the example, 10 years ago, most of us didn't have a cell phone. And now if you leave it home, you swear you left your arm at home. And this is just a silly little box we carry around. What about the entire world that we become addicted to? And we don't remember that we put it into place and now we're reaping the effects of it.
Just another smoke screen.
Another smoke screen, and those smoke screens are amazing.
They add up, don't they?
They add up and they're amazing.
So we're sitting on the patio this morning and talking about this stuff and the illusion and how the world is the illusion, the body and the world and everything. And,
Right.
it's so nice and quiet and drinking coffee and whatever. And I'm thinking, well, what does this symbolize? I'm just looking at everything around me.
Right.
And, I said, life. And Harvey says, death. And I don't know where to go from there.
Well, again, how could we? This world is my world where there's life and death. And I think I'm alive now, okay? Yeah. Well, figures, you what? Get this already. This is what we know.
Yeah.
And then the course comes along and says the only place that life is here.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't do me any good here. Thank you very much.
Right.
You
It's
can't,
like this
you
blank
can't
screen.
understand it.
Right.
You really
You
can't.
you can't. But I think if we can just take a morsel of that and recognize what I believe is life and death, he's trying to explain to me, don't hold so tightly to that. Let me show you there's something beyond that.
And that's painful to realize and to let go of and to accept and say,
Exactly.
okay, take me.
Yeah, well, we're not ready for that
You're an
one.
abstract being. Do you really comprehend? No.
Well, no, and what you guys were just talking about, I believe, is, when you're looking around and as soon as you start to identify, we limit, right? So you say life, Harvey says death, but you're looking around and, that's where I really admire Eckhart Tolle, and that's because he talks about presence and not naming it. And it's very hard when you go into the metro parks, it's icy and the birch trees are all white and it's like something you just haven't seen for so long. And you just want to go, wow. Because the minute you define it, you've just freaking ruined it.
You limit it.
Yes, because expression is always less than experience.
Yep.
And the experience is the presence of something so and it's usually in nature or whatever, like your backyard is so serene and so beautiful, but as soon as we start naming it, we kind of ruin it because nothing has any real meaning.
You stop with the first lesson in the
Right.
book and comprehend that.
I did.
That's nothing.
I have, and that's how I learned that language fails us. Because,
yes.
because you just cannot convey to somebody because of their own perceptions. You cannot convey, identical, I can't convey my meaning to someone else and have them necessarily get me no matter how articulate I am.
It's the same thing when you retell. It's the same thing as when you retell a story. It's the ego at that point. Even though it was originally in the Holy Spirit, you experienced it. When you retell it, it's of the ego.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we can't, We can't capture this and bring it over here. These are mutually exclusive experiences. You can do your best to say words and the person you're speaking to might go, well, I've had a miracle, so I relate to the fact that I can tell you're having a miracle, but they can't give you that. It's
You've been there.
impossible, impossible.
And, I just want to say the terminology, again, as Eckhart says, life has no opposite. We don't know what about life. We know about birth and death,
Right.
And it makes it real clear for me. It's like, again, that's trying to explain again the
Yes.
opposite side, talking about life.
Yep.
What do I know about life? I think this is life.
Yep.
This is,
Of course we do.
Yeah.
And the course actually specifically states that words are symbols of symbols.
Yeah.
So that's impossible. Plus, it occurred to me after many years of doing the course, literally, we're all different when we align over here. How in the heck could I ever convince anybody of what I'm thinking or feeling or believing and make them understand completely? Not gonna happen.
Because they perceive it completely different.
Absolutely.
And they're conveying it almost all the
Absolutely.
time. It's like that game monkey in the telephone line.
but I'm always just
Yes.
explaining it to myself,
Right.
But I
And
think
yet,
I'm explaining. it to
we
someone else.
probably all had moments where, we let go and we're aware of oneness, a holy
Yes.
instant or whatever it is. And maybe we're with somebody when that happens and you just know. It's the knowing, it's truth, it's
Yep.
an experience.
But you
that-
can't explain.
You
it.
but you can't explain it.
And that's the beauty of it, because as soon as you explain it, you've just lost that experience.
Correct. Absolutely.
No, I would disagree with that. You can't lose that.
Right.
But it's ego trying to claim it
Right.
and describe, look how special I am, blah, 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 blah.
But I think you minimize it when you go to express it. Like, I'm gonna tell you about the sunset I saw last night, but it's not the same as the experience of having, if you can't convey,
Nope.
it always loses expression rather than the actual experience is what I meant.
And I think of those moments that we have like holy instants, it's like an eraser, I've been erased. Okay, so that is now with me.
Yep.
That's in there.
That's you now.
That
Yes.
is now me, that space in there where there used to be Helene. Now there is space. You can't take that away from me. I will not ever minimize it, no matter what I try to do.
That's the thing, ego can't touch.
Right.
That
It
side
can't
of the
touch it.
chart,
It's
as
light.
much as it
It
would like
wants
you
to
to think,
yes,
it wants you to think,
yes.
it can't.
Yep.
It can't.
And not.
And remember, every time you ask for help, you're stepping over here and a little bit of you is being erased. So when you come back here, you are not the same person that left, even if the scenario and the situation looks worse than it did before you left. You are not who you were before.
You just pop those pixels.
Yeah.
All right, let me just finish these last couple lines and then we will close. My Father placed me safe in heaven, watching over me. While our Father is waiting for us to return, he does not have a whip. He's not telling us we have to get over here right now. He's just there being who he is, and it'll be available when we're ready to walk there. And I would not attack the son he loves, for what he loves is also mine to love. But be aware, because of this setup, we feel justified to attack our brother. And our brother is simply doing what we programmed or we wrote in the script for him to do.
If it's my dream, I gave him the lines.
You got it. And then I hate him for it, which is really hating part of me.
That's it.
One mind.
Yes.
And then there's that too.
Yes. Right, and then we can talk about this in philosophy in class, but what do we do when we walk out there and somebody says something?
We forget.
We go right back to,
We forget.
Well,
We
the
go
veil
blank.
drop.
but as we keep working on this, as we keep practicing, as we become more aware of it, we're going to catch ourselves a little once in a while, and then it'll be a little bit more. And then pretty soon, if something just even slightly feels out of place, you'll immediately go back to the center of your.
That's why this is a process.
Absolutely, and it's
That's
called
all it is.
a course.
The funniest thing that I've been experiencing is that I'll be so serious about it, and then I would just start to laugh because it really, this is so dumb.
Yes.
So dumb.
That's where you have to take yourself.
Yeah, trust
When
me.
you're able to, that's where you need to
Yeah.
take yourself.
Yeah.
And we'll have more and more of those experiences where it'll just, you know, like you say, you're just wrapped so tight and then whew, it just falls away.
You know, Mary Ann gives out this little slip of paper.
Yep.
Usually the beginners or whatever. And it's looking at the ego.
Yep.
With the Holy Spirit's gentle smile.
Yeah.
That's the essence of forgiveness.
Yeah, don't quit till you get to the smile.
Yep.
Yeah.
How bad do you want it?
And when you don't want it, just keep practicing.
Yeah, observing
Keep going.
without judgment. Because that's also a way of whittling yourself down relative to willingness and, you know, choosing for the other side.
Right. And I would add,
Be there.
and I would say to the best of your ability at any given time, because if I, you know, intellectually know this, but I'm still acting out of here, that's where I am right now. And
That's what
smile
I
at
did
that.
with the COVID. Just watching the idiots on TV. Trying to make everybody scared.
Yeah.
Just watching them.
But then
Because they were
you
scared.
can't help but have judgment when it affects your kids and your grandkids and their futures and their lives and their
Well, they're
livelihood.
not,
and their
number one,
health.
they're not my kids. I was a vessel that brought them in. They're just like you and I. You and me.
But I think I got to live this long. I would think that they deserve to have a chance, except someone else
Well-
is making the decisions.
You don't know what they do about the decisions. You don't know the path that they have to follow.
See, the DM, but you're right, it is, it
Yeah.
is judgment. the
Decision
judgment
maker.
comes.
Sure, it's automatic.
So we look at that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I don't watch the news anymore.
Right.
because it's so slanted
Yes,
that
right.
You can't.
Yeah, but see,
And
that's-
keep your
that's-
eyes
That's a
focused where it
learning
needs to be
lesson.
focused.
That's a classroom.
I'll hit you
The
with
news is the curriculum. And you see how it affects you.
Yep.
Don't run from it, just look at it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
But we're gonna get the lesson, whether it's from
The news or somewhere else.
But the looking is watching ourselves operate.
Yep.
It's watching ourselves operate. It isn't looking like external to ourselves. It's looking at our mind.
What's
judgments we're
what's
making.
affecting you
Right.
inside.
Yeah,
Looking at the reaction that I'm having to the news.
Right.
That shows you
People are doing
the
what they
content in your
Right.
mind. What's
Acting
what's in
as.
mind,
That's what we
without
do.
the world, you would never know what's in your mind.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why your brother's your savior. That's why they're-
Yes.
You're the savior.
He's a gift.
Correct.
so what? You can't. It's also
All
why we
right.
can't understand each other because we all make different associations based upon our thoughts or feelings. And so they have completely different meanings than what someone else may be
That's
intending.
why interpretations are foolish.
Yeah, well, welcome to the world.
That's why
of digital
texting is
mindset.
bad, because no one can't see their faith or how they are actually presenting that.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, are they criticizing or are they curious?
It's none of my business. How am I reacting to what they're saying?
Right. Yeah. All right, let's say our prayer and go out there and practice.
Oh, boy. Marianne, you come? No?
No. Okay, everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into minds that you created and which you love. Amen.